AST 2016. This is interviews, music reviews, and more. This is The Hodder Show.
What is up, everybody? We are rolling audio here today on episode 392 of The Hodder Show. I hope you guys are doing absolutely fantastic. Thank you so very much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. I've got a kick-ass episode for you here today as I sit down with my new buddy, Zak Smith, the bass player of the Mighty Pound of Flesh, as we have just a wonderful time talking all about his career, his start in music, what got him into playing, some really wonderful stories about his kind of the early days of playing music, how he joined Pound of Flesh, how he helped kind of shape the band with their live performance and how he is such a big part of that, as well as a bunch of fun tangents about music, specifically about Metallica and our mutual love of Jason Newsted, and also actually Mike Mushock of Stained, if you can believe that. So a really fun conversation with Zak, and I hope that you guys enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed recording it. Before we jump into that, though, I, of course, want to thank everybody for their support on the last episode of The Hodder Show, my chat with Ev Gallows from Judgment. A really wonderful conversation. Always great getting to catch up with my boy, Ev from Judgment. They're killing it right now. Go check them out. They thoroughly deserve your support. And big thank you again, Ev, for coming on the show, brother. Always a pleasure getting to chat with you. With that, we're ready to roll into today's episode of my chat with Zak Smith from the Mighty Pound of Flesh. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we're here with Zak Smith from the almighty Pound of Flesh, the man hanging down on the low end of things. Zak, man, what's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm not bad, man. I'm not bad. How are you?
I'm not doing too bad, man. Happy we were able to link up and make this happen today.
Yeah, it's going to be rocking.
I'm looking forward to it, bro. Well, listen, first and foremost, I got to say the new single, Black Mirror, it's fucking awesome, dude. I'm super hyped on it. And I know that you guys have been playing tons of shows locally and stuff like that. And the single is absolutely killer, dude. How happy are you that that single's finally out?
I'm pretty happy with it. Black Mirror's pretty sick. And the best part is there's no actual bass on it. So, and let me explain. It's just a MIDI bass, just kind of, I think it's gym bass. It's just based off of a dingwall, which obviously, like we both know, I used to play, but it kind of set a groundwork. Like I didn't even have to write anything. You know how awesome that is? Like that comes across as like not a very good thing, but I'm a particularly lazy musician. So when they come to me and they go, "Hey, this is already done," I'm like, "Cool, let's do it."
So then you can just come awesome in and play it live and just hang out.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, every single time it gets re-recorded anyway. And if they want something different, they're like, "Do this." I just have to do it that way. But Black Mirror is fantastic. Almost nobody has noticed that it was a MIDI bass, and I think that's just fantastic in and of itself. The revolution of MIDI instruments, you know, from way back when, and even now, there's a bunch of records that I really, really like that has had MIDI bass on it, and it's kind of had to make me step up as a musician myself.
I think that's what's so wild about the whole like MIDI instrument thing is like you can have it. I think it was the Boys in Seagrave where when I found out that literally like all the drums are MIDI and all the bass is MIDI, basically. I was like,
ooh,
oh,
yeah.
Like I was shocked because I was like, dude, it sounds mint. And they're like, yeah, why do you think we did it that way? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It saves you so much money.
Well, it's a budget thing. It's a performance thing, but it's also kind of like an aesthetic thing. I'm finding a lot of heavier bands, especially in like the hardcore stuff, or even there's a band I really like, Dragged Under. I am assuming you know them. Like it's a YouTuber band, but they used a MIDI bass of again a dingwall for, I think it was called "The World Is in Your Way," and I practice that all the time. It really makes you kind of hyper focus, and you kind of have to be a better player because people hear it live and they go, "Oh wow, cool, that sounds a little sloppy." So it's a blessing and a curse, especially if you're one of those people with a big ego and you're like, I need to have this. Like, I need my performance on record. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like almost like a blessing and a curse, right? Because you're like, oh,
Absolutely.
I can get that. That's what would terrify me if I had someone else like kind of write my parts and stuff. I'm like, well, shit, bro, what if I can't play that? Like it's so kudos to you for being into it because I'd be freaking out the whole time, man. I'm like, like
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. And I think another thing, and especially being in a band with five other big personalities, is it's MIDI based. Like it's not something that I have to take personally. It's not an attack on me. Like I hear praises from them, even though I think I'm probably like a 6 out of 10 in the bass
No,
department.
bro, you're a 10
But
out of 10, bro. I saw you play live. Come on.
I
Don't be
appreciate it.
don't be modest.
No, I'm very shy. People come up to me and they're like, "You're fantastic. I've never heard someone like get a timbre from basses like that before." I'm like, "Thank you, but please reconsider."
Please
Um,
reconsider.
but no, like say like Shane and Zach write a lot of the songs, and I have guitar riffs and stuff that I contribute or like compositional ideas that I contribute all the time. But when they go, oh yeah, here's the bass part, I don't go, you know what I mean? Like
I think that
I
this should
just
be an F sharp major here. No.
yeah. The only thing that I had that was I guess my opposition was the tuning lower. So we're going back to G sharp just because we couldn't make drop F work.
That is like just the whole down tuning thing, bro. Like I think it's wicked. Don't get me wrong, because I'm a student of like baritone guitar and stuff. Like that
Oh,
was all
100.
my
Oh,
shit.
yeah,
Like
Mike
you
Mushock,
and I
right?
talked. Yes, you and I talked before about Stained and Mike Mushock. Like I was raised on that shit, bro. The 2000s era of guitar. Like, but even then, like Mike was tuning down to like he has some stuff in G and whatnot. But like I'm also a big Seven Dust fan, and they have stuff in like G and F sharp and that. But like for me, it was like, oh, like drop A and B standard. That's like baritone, right?
Oh,
So then now
100%.
I see guys like, and then you got guys like Seagrave who are tuned to like fucking E, like, but like a full octave down. I'm like, dude, get the fuck out of here. Like, it's just
Yeah.
like, shouts to
So
the homies, but
oh, absolutely. Seagrave her are intense and they sound just as monstrous live as they do in the studio. So, you got to give like Ali and Stiv a lot of credit there. The one thing that I guess for me, it couldn't really work out because I like to try and keep an octave relationship. I think it just sounds really, really big. But when you tune down to F, like F0, the fundamental frequency is like just a bit above 20 hertz, like not close 21. I think it's like 20.80. I think it's like 83. So fundamentally, it's just noise. So you have to do like the psychoacoustic approach where you get that fundamental out of the way and it's all the harmonics kind of filling in. Um, that's the problem I was having with it, and it wasn't really working the way that we wanted it to. So we did kind of what Seagrave does, and especially Meshuggah comes to mind, where the guitar and bass are tuned to the exact same pitch, and it sounds really, really good. But creatively, I guess that's not what we wanted. So we kind of all just looked at each other and we were like, what if we just put everything back in G sharp? And bam, there it was. It's monstrous. It's huge. It's awesome. I hope you're coming to one of the shows this month because it's just gonna be big. It's gonna be awesome.
well, listen, as we're recording this, if I'm not mistaken, you guys are going to be coming to Urban with the boys and Seagrave, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, with
I think on the
Seagrave.
16th, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
As
yeah,
this
yeah.
is actually as this is coming, this is going to be out the 15th. So yeah, it's tomorrow.
Literally, yeah, it'll be tomorrow.
Oh,
That's
fuck!
for
I
sure.
hope it's not this. Hang on, I'm gonna check that date because if it's the 16th, I can't go now. Shit. Sorry, guys. I'm just doing a
Buddy.
sidebar here. But while we're on the topic of playing live in massive tones and stuff. What are you doing live to be able to achieve that tone that you have? Because you have a killer fucking tone, dude. That was one thing right away I was so curious about when I see bands like yourselves who have such a cool, unique style, but then also I know you're tuning low. You had a really massive bass tone, but it was still really nice and tight. What are you doing to keep that kind of tight response?
Oh man. It's gonna be such a disappointment to kind of disclose what's going on now. Nothing.
Nothing, not a damn thing. It's all on the fingers, bro.
No, I mean, kind of, not really, from my experience anyway. So the bass that I was using was a Chapman bass, and I recently came across that particular model, which was the multi-scale version of Dave Hollingworth from Dorje. They only made 20 units of that particular model, and I had number 5. So I think it was the multi-scale that helped out a little bit with keeping things low, but also the minimalist approach. It's literally that bass into a tuner, into an amp. That's it live.
That's got to have something to do with the multi-scale, I would assume. Like because it's so, like I was genuinely like, oh, like he's got a really tight response there for tuning down as low as you guys do. That's got to have something to do with it, man. The multi-scale or something, I guess.
I'd say yes. It's not as large as it is, say, on a Dingwall scale. Like Dingwalls with their 37-inch B strings, like you can tune down to what we're tuning down, and it's going to have massive tension and massive tone. But this is only about 35 inches, so it's, it only gets you about the extra 10%. But between that and like a really thick string and some good intonation and playing technique as well, I've modified my technique a little bit. I'm a very aggressive player. Zakk and Shane will, they praise to the heavens the attack that I have. It's mostly kind of like half between like slapping it, and I strike right through the string, so it kind of ricochets off the fretboard, and that kind of helps out a lot too. So there's not a lot of string warble. In my experience, someone's probably going to listen to this and be like, "Oh, you know what? That's actually not true." Well, but
the figurative response at the 37th hertz. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, basically. So
basically,
oh, that's bad. So essentially, no, that's quite literally all I do. I think a lot of that magic comes from the amplifications, because I do two things that are pretty much really, really different from a lot of the sounds that I hear in modern metal. I don't use a lot of gain. I don't blend the clean signal in either, so it's like just mildly saturated. But I also use a lot of mid-range in my tone as well. So I find a lot of people are like carving out a lot of frequencies, and I'm just like, nah, I just leave them in, and then I beat the bass like it owes me money.
I like it though. That was something that with your guys' performance, man. I told the story when I saw you guys at Heavy Lindsay. God, this was a few months ago, I guess now. I was standing right in front center, because I really wanted to watch. Specifically, I wanted to see Zak's playing, because I knew he was a rhythm guy and I'm in love with his guitar. I was like, I wanted to just see that guitar in action. And then also selfishly, I knew Max, there might be a chance he has the General, which is what I used to call that LTD he bought for me. So I was like, I just want to see. And the biggest surprise for me was the second I heard you hit your first note. I was like, good grief. Like it just, I felt it in my chest. I was like, okay. And then because you guys started off with Crossroad Boogeyman, and like I was standing with my phone out and I was recording up, like I had my phone up and I was like recording down, and literally the second the bass kicked in, dude, I felt it in my chest, and then so did everyone else, and everyone else just started mosh pitting.
Yeah,
And
yeah, I remember that very
I came out of mosh retirement for a few seconds because it was like not by choice. I was like, oh shit, I'm just fighting for my life. Like
in the crosshairs.
Yeah, in a good way though. It was like I was like, oh shit. Yeah, dude. It's like it's such a massive tone, so it's hilarious to hear that you're just like you just got like, yeah, plug it into a tuner, and
yeah,
that's got to be technique too, though. It has to be a little bit like.
I definitely think the approach to how I was playing does a lot. So because I'm primarily a pick player, and that's actually, it's kind of disappointing because I've retired the Chapman and I've pulled out another really mid-range heavy bass, and I'm going back to the pick as well. So you're gonna miss it, but we'll see something. Hopefully you can come out to another show or something. And
yeah, I was just gonna say I was looking up that, and it is the 16th. Unfortunately,
that's terrible.
I just started a new like gig at my job, and I work Friday nights now, and I'm just like, so shout out to the boys. Man. I'll have to miss it, but everyone who's listening from Peterborough, get the hell out there, because it's going to be you're not going to survive that show, guys. Like it's just it's going to be wild. It's going to be wild, man, and everyone's going to be looking forward to seeing you do your thing. But let's go back for a minute here, because I'm curious, talking all about you playing bass and all that stuff. How did this whole journey with music start for you? What was some of the first music you ever heard? What made you want to pick up an instrument and start playing?
So this is going to be a bit of a saga, but growing up, I heard anything and everything. And I got to give a lot of credit to my dad and especially my mom. So like in the car, I'd be obviously with my mother. My dad would work a lot, and she put on things like, like Shania Twain, Avril Lavigne. I heard Fiona Apple. I heard a lot of women in music at the time, like the 90s, the early 2000s. But my dad, growing up, I heard a lot of things, like a huge variety. And even now, like I go to his house and I hear things that I would never normally listen to. So like growing up, I heard like movements from Beethoven's symphonies. I heard the Ninth Symphony a lot, Tupac Shakur, Bob and Ziggy Marley, Grand Funk Railroad, a lot of Motown, Michael Jackson, his solo career, obviously. Just a lot of things. The Beatles. I first heard the Beatles when I was about 9 years old, and that was really, really incredible to me. But the huge interest was always there. I had an MP3 player. I was kind of allowed to keep it at school. I would, load it up with like Eminem or other things, just to listen to it, just because I like that song and I focus on it like 272 times. It's not like I'm autistic or anything, but I'm serious. Yeah, I literally listened to everything, and I got super into it. Unfortunately, because of a stroke, not my own, but my grandfather's. We moved in at our grandparents at the time while we were transitioning from moving from one house to the other, and I guess there was a closure issue or something, but. Yeah, he had a stroke, and it was a very traumatizing time, and I couldn't sleep. There's an ambulance and everything. I was very upset and very distraught, and I found myself early in the morning alone by myself because people were going to school and things, and I think we were allowed to take the day off. I turn on the TV, and it was on Much Music, and the first thing that I see is the music video for Welcome to the Black Parade by My Chemical Romance. So And I was bewildered. Like my eyes probably popped out of the socket. It was big, it was theatrical. That was really the first piece of music that I felt 100% with every piece of my body. And unfortunately, that was a signifier for the end for my grandfather. And about a year later, he would have passed away. So, as a little tribute, I got the marcher from that record tattooed right on my arm, on my picking arm, so that I can play notes the same way that I felt it when I heard them in the beginning. And a little further down, I didn't start playing guitar till I was about 11. I always kind of pondered the idea, and then I started bugging my parents for it. And I'm like, I want a guitar. I want a guitar. And my dad, he bought me a Silvertone Strat copy. I can still see it. It's Silver Burst. And I learned anything that I could. I learned a lot of punk music. I learned a lot of like old rock tunes. And everyone played guitar. And I'm like, well, how am I going to stand out if everyone plays guitar? So I went to my dad and I said, I want a bass. And my dad's like, no, you have a guitar. So I bugged him and bugged him and bugged him and bugged him until Christmas that year. I would have been 11. And he got me a Fender Precision bass. And I still have it. I'm looking at it right now. And it got stolen, but it got retrieved. Like that thing has its own saga. Um, and at that time I was really, really into Metallica, especially like the Black Album kind of things. So I saw a lot of Jason Newsted, and I saw he played a lot of Sadowski's, which I thought were Fender basses at the time. So I wanted that. And the rest was basically history. I got into thrash metal and jazz in high school. I played a little bit in the jazz bands as an extracurricular thing. Country music has always been there as well. Like I said, Shania Twain, my ex-girlfriend, is a country musician. I've played with a couple as well. And I don't listen to a lot of heavy music, but when I do, it's kind of disgusting. And that kind of mysteriously kind of led me into Pound of Flesh.
There's a lot there to unpack that I wanted
Right.
to ask about, just kind of as I was listening. One thing that is so wild to hear your story of, turning on Black Parade and that, or Welcome to the Black Parade. That's so cool, man. I just want to say, like, to have that significance of having that tattoo, like, that was such a powerful song and music video, dude. Like,
Yeah.
of our generation, especially, like, that record cannot be understated for how, I mean, I was in grade 10 when it came out. So like I'm a little older than you. So like I was a teenager when I heard it, but like,
Yeah.
that song and that whole record, that, signifying kind of the rock opera thing of death and things of that nature, and with what you went through, like, that's wild. I guess coincidence isn't quite the right word.
It's
But
I
something.
always refer to it as a moment of serendipity.
Yes, serendipity. That's the word I was looking for. It's just like you just happen to turn on the TV and it's like,
Yeah,
like,
and
what
that's
the fuck?
exactly what it was. Like I tell that story, and it when the words come out of my mouth, it still doesn't feel real, but every time I do, I get the emotion of, little 9-year-old Zakk, because that was 2006. My grandfather passed away when I was 10. That's the only way I remember.
Mhm.
Um, and I get that awe every single time. It's intense. It's a very big and raw emotion, and I've seen them a couple of times now in concert. The most important one to me was I saw them in Montreal a couple of years ago when they did the reunion tour, and I saw them with some very, very, very close friends of mine who came all the way across the Atlantic to get some engagement rings, and I went to their wedding a couple of months ago and missed a couple of shows with Pound of Flesh over it, but I wouldn't have changed it for the world, because that was such an iconic moment in my life. And shout out to Katie and Alex. I love them to death. And coincidentally, that band is the reason that I know them. So My Chemical Romance has been a huge, huge turning point for my life, and it always will be. And I don't think their influence would ever go away.
Yeah, it's that's one of those bands that like in that era of music is so wild for me, bro, because like I was so into like the alternative metal and hard rock scene at that time, like the Godsmacks and Stains and things of that nature,
Oh,
like we've talked about
absolutely.
before off mic and stuff. But I didn't really truly appreciate My Chemical Romance until like even like a few years ago. Like I heard that song and that record, and I was like, this is triple platinum certified record. Like this is one of the most important records of my generation.
Yeah,
And I
I
never,
would
you
argue
know,
even for just the alternative scene in
oh,
general, like it was
100%. 100% for that
absolutely
emo
incredible.
alternative rock genre, especially like
Hmm.
get the fuck out of here. Like that's, it's such a massive record, and being able to see them live, like that's awesome. When you have that connection with a band and specifically a song, when you hear a song in a moment in time, when you really, really need it and you don't even know you need it, that's the beauty of music is you
Oh,
can have,
absolutely.
you won't know that a song will come into your life when you need it. And
Oh,
that's wild, dude.
100%.
That's wild.
100%. Um, yeah, it's crazy. And I think that's why I've always been able to resonate with music so much is because it is such a knee-jerk emotional reaction. And it's in such a way that it's tied to a memory, it's tied to a smell. Another song that I have is Tangled Up in You, like the Aaron Lewis song, the
Dude.
Stain song.
Yeah.
That was a song that I found through a very kind of tumultuous time in my adolescence. I was like seeing a girl, things weren't working the best. And I'm like, and it's so juvenile. It's such a juvenile thing. But then that person came back into my life just before COVID. And it was another routine of it was working, but then it wasn't working. And it's no disrespect to them because I wish them the best. And she's amazing. She's a wonderful songwriter. She's a great, great performer. And I respect what she does. But that's just someone that can't be in my life anymore. And I hear that song and I think of all the good times of it. And then I'm also reminded of all the bad times as well.
That's so wild that you're saying that because I had such a similar situation, not quite as intense, but like, my first like real relationship out of high school, was
Oh yeah.
was like that song was right around that time when that song came out, and like that or at least the Stained version of that song, not the Aaron Lewis version, which is also incredible. It's basically the same song.
Just more slide guitar.
Yeah, just a little more twang than
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mike Mushok doesn't do the slide twang, but yeah, it's so cool to be able to even if you look back on a moment in your life and a song, and even if it's not necessarily a fully happy thing, it's
Hmm.
like just to be able to have that emotion as soon as second you hear that first that the first picking chord, you're like, oh fuck, like,
Yeah.
you know.
It's really funny because I can listen to the Stained song and feel a little bit of peace. Uh, but as soon as Welcome to the Black Parade comes on, I get choked up. There's like sometimes where I can't listen to it. But it's such an important piece of like musical history or for me, just in general, like I am never not gonna shy away from that openness there. I'll 100% listen to it, but there's a 100% chance that I will tear up and or just flat out cry hearing the song.
Yeah, dude, there's something about having that emotional connection to songs that is like, it's nice to be able to maybe have that moment. And sometimes you're like, I need to just purge myself right now. I need to just let some emotion out. And you know that, okay, if I turn this song on, it's probably going to bring something out of me that maybe 100%. In that moment you need.
100%.
Yeah, dude.
And most of that record too, just the Black Parade in general, will bring out some sort of emotion like that in me. And it's so funny because, you know, I'm gonna hear this back after this is finished, and I'm gonna be like, wow, you sound like every fucking 12-year-old that has gone through like a divorce ever. And I'll be like, yeah, I do, but this is how it speaks to me, and this is what it is. So like, get bent, I guess.
Dude, the fact that my genre is now a meme, divorce, dad rock, butt rock, all that stuff, like it kind of bums me the fuck out sometimes, because I'm like, there are kids who like, they'll like that music and they'll understand that, like, hey, there's more to it than just, you know, some kind of bravado and heavy guitars and shit for some of it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah.
They'll be like, 100%. Oh, but like, if you say, like, God forbid, if you're in high school right now and you say you like fucking Godsmack or something,
or Nickelback,
oh, you're into divorced dad rock, butt rock, and it's like, dude, like, get out of here, man. Like, Nickelback changed my fucking life, dude. Like, don't even.
That's my guilty pleasure music, 100%.
Oh, dude, no guilty pleasure. It's just pleasure.
As a teenager, I was an absolute dickhead to my mom about Nickelback. And you know what? If you're listening to this, I'm sorry. I love you. You were right the entire time.
Dude, Nickelback slaps. I grew up with that shit, dude. Like,
and so did I. My parents put it on all the time, but then it got popular to hate butt rock, you know, right? But Nickelback is great. Nickelback is great. And you know what? They're much like me and the Black Parade, there are some Nickelback songs that my mom can't listen to just because of the memory and the feelings around it. To go back to that emotional point, it's just genuinely beautiful how people can connect and resonate for different reasons on the same song, even like the Tangled Up in You story that you and I just shared. I don't know, man. Music's a beautiful thing. It bewilders me genuinely.
Yeah, it's something that, like, even to me, man, like 10 years, actually, fuck, more like 12 years now at this point. I look back on, I cannot be in a room with somebody if certain songs come on. I'll, like, aside from my wife, like, I'll be cool with that, because I know, like, I'm just gonna start crying, and it's
absolutely.
Dude, any time that Remember Everything by Five Finger Death Punch comes on, shut it the fuck down. I literally am just like, well, that's it for me for the day. Like, I just
there's another there's a Metallica song that's also one that resonates with me a lot. And I don't know why, because it's called Hero of the Day. It's from Load.
Fuck
right,
yeah, dude.
It's the only song they've ever written that was in like a major key, and I don't know why it resonates with me so much. It's kind of like a mental health struggle song, so I guess maybe that, but that's one that I have to skip because I will cry if I hear it. But it's such a beautiful song, and I guess fun little fact of trivia: John Mayer said that's his favorite Metallica solo from that song. So check it out, because John Mayer is actually sick as fuck. That's another one that gets memed on that I don't think should be.
Fun fact also for you folks at home who may not know, Load is my favorite Metallica record.
Me too. High five.
Yes, fuck yeah, dude. I love it. Well, for me, a Metallica song that, again, every time I hear it, and I hear it on the radio once in a while too, which always hypes me up because I love the song. But it brings me back to when I was like fucking 16, thinking I was going through this super intense breakup, bro. Like, you know, and it was The Unforgiven 2.
Oh, I love The Unforgiven 2.
I fucking, every time I hear it, I'm just like, I'm 16 years old again. Just
that country western stuff, bro.
Yeah, dude. There's some good
That's
shit in there, man.
that's why chapter one is probably like my favorite creation is all the southern and
Yeah,
country
dude.
influence on it, man. It
Fuck yeah,
ties
dude.
both worlds for me together.
Well, talking on load and reload and all that. I mean, I also heard you mention him earlier, and that's my boy. So I gotta ask. So you mentioned how Jason Newsted had an influence on you in the early days. How underrated is Jason Newsted as a Metallica bass player?
And it's K, so this is gonna sound very dick righty, but absolutely underrated for every aspect. You know, he's got 3 fucking songwriting credits, but I think genuinely there was nobody else to fill those shoes. He did so many different things. Like live, he was incredible. He was the biggest thing, and that's the biggest influence for my live show is to be over the top, larger than life, make your bass guitar fucking roar. You know, just seeing that guy on stage be a fucking animal. It I have to do it. I have to do it. That is what it is, you know. Um, I have some friends. They're called the Nobodies. They called me Jason Thickstead, which was really fucking funny. They did that once. So shout out the Nobodies. Love them. um, so I think that was literally like the best compliment ever. A lot of friends in the States are like, oh man, if Jason Newsted saw you, he'd be proud. And I'm like, would he though? Would he? I'm basically just doing what he does.
I think he would. I think that's the cool thing about Jason is like he, especially now, like not so much back in the day. Like when he first left Metallica, he was very much like, you know, about the whole thing. But now it's like, especially when he made his comeback, which I love that fucking EP. I love the record, but the record doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what happened. It just disappeared.
It just fell off the face of the earth. I don't know. I saw that. I saw him on Gigantour, and then the Toronto Encore where he sang Phantom Lord with Megadeth. Like that was a big thing for me too. Little 16-year-old Zakk just over the fucking moon, just seeing his idol on stage. Like Soldier Head is actually in my routine practice. Every day I play it at least once.
That's awesome. Is there any other classic Newsted bass lines that you rip a lot or?
Well, I'm gonna let you take a guess.
Well, there's two that comes to mind. One is the one everyone says, which is Blackened.
Yeah.
And then there's the thing I can't pick up a guitar without playing it, and that's My Friend in Misery.
I do both pretty routinely, yeah. Whole songs, except for My Friend in Misery. I do the Cunning Stunts big bass solo.
Dude, get the fuck out of here. Oh yeah.
So that was actually I think it was like 3 days as a teenager, and I'm just like, I'm gonna learn this. This is exactly how it should be 100% all the time. And now that I learned it, that's just something that I play. I just like fucking sad music, man.
Dude, I still to this day, like I said, I'm not joking when I say I pick up a guitar. I can't pick up a guitar without strumming without strumming the chords from Nutshell by Alice in Chains and playing My Friend in Misery. Like it's just like my ticks. I have to do it. You can tell so much about an instrument by how My Friend of Misery sounds on it. That Cunning Stunts version. Because it has the intro part, which is like that. I mean, I don't need to sit here and mouth the part out, you know it, but like then the strumming part. Well, I guess I don't think that's Cunning Stunts. I think that's an earlier one. He did that version of My Friend in Misery where it's like he like does like a fast strumming version of it.
Yeah, that's the Black Album one.
Yes, right. Okay. But it's funny you mentioned that, dude. Like my friend and I back in the day, man, we learned that thing through and through. He went and bought a wah pedal so he could do Kirk's part. Like,
oh yeah, I love that.
That's wild, dude.
So My Friend of Misery is one thing that I use to test instruments out, and another one that I use quite ironically, because I'm not a huge fan of Megadeth, is Peace Sells. Like that bass intro, that boo doo doo doo. Like I do that. That's probably the first thing that I play whenever I have a new instrument.
Well, Dave Elfson was still, I don't know if it was, is a phenomenal bass player.
Yeah,
Like he always, as much as I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be a huge Megadeth fan. Mad respect to what they did and what they still are doing. Dave Elfson is like, he's one of those like seasoned guys who like he's done so many different types of music as well. I mean, he's best known for Megadeth, obviously, but like, he's the other member of Megadeth, right? Like, it's like, Dave Mustaine and a cast of characters featuring Dave Elfson, but like, it's like he's one of those guys who like he is a little underrated too as far as what he brings to the table.
Yeah. Like it's really hard to even kind of undermine him because he was pretty integral, not only like sonically but musically. There's like Poison Was the Cure was one that I can think of. I believe that was his songwriting credit. But even so, like, can you really imagine another bass player playing stuff like that?
No.
Well, then on top of it too, he's just an incredible musician. He's, like you said, he's well seasoned, but like, you can look at his left hand, like he's got really good economy of motion. He's a pick player, which I really enjoy because, Newstead, and then people are always going to be like, oh, he's obviously the better bass player, which is fine, but Newstead just has that vibe, man. He's just the dude for me.
That's this General Newstead, bro. Don't at me. Don't get me wrong. Cliff was the fucking man. I'm not going to sit here and say I didn't go through my Cliff phase, but like, dude, like first time you see him just do his thing, you're like, oh, that's the man. That's the guy.
Absolutely.
Like I remember hearing someone call him General Newstead.
Newstead.
And I was just like, yeah, like he's up there sense. Just, and he's up there. He
commands the stage.
Yes.
Like he's just such a huge presence. Well, like, let's backtrack a little bit. Like, hearing Metallica, I was 14 when I first figured out what they looked like and used the wonderful resource of YouTube to see live videos. I saw it was Toshino Airfield, 1.5 million people, just James and Lars like starting Enter Sandman. This dude comes out like a fucking rocket, windmills, jumping, basically like punching his bass, and I'm like, yeah, that's the guy. That's who I want to play like. It's straight up. It was beautiful.
And my man had like a few songwriting credits, right? Like it's kind of hilarious to think about, man, his influence. Like, I mean, for me, like, we're talking about Load and Reload era, like, I mean, I'm just looking because I was curious. So that's
it's Black and My Friend of Misery and Where the Wild Things Are, all three.
Apparently he doesn't have one there either. Yeah, Black and My Friend of Misery, Where the Wild Things Are, and there was another one that I always forget about. And I'm trying really hard. I'm pretty sure it's just
the three.
I swear to God. There was another one, and it was off of. I thought he had a credit on Bad Seed for some reason.
Oh, yeah, I could see it.
It's just Where the Wild Things Are. Okay, interesting.
Like Load and Reload were especially really cool for me because, obviously he used a bunch of gear, and I am a big fucking gear nut. But like, he was introducing like slap bass. He was doing a bunch of other things. And contrary to popular belief, Jason Newsted is actually where I found Dingwall basses from, because he used one to record on like all the slap bass parts in Load were on a Dingwall Prima Voodoo. And I thought that was really, really cool. So I'm like, what the fuck are these? And, typing on my computer, And
I loved the sound design there. Good job.
um, and that's ultimately how I found Nolly and Periphery, and then Meshuggah, and just all those big prog bands. Because I'm familiar with jazz and big band stuff and orchestras at that point because of my dad, who I need to backtrack for a second because he also introduced me to Morsey and the Smiths. So shout out, Dad, love you. But that's how I found heavy music, was the gatekeeper drug, or whatever it is, gateway drug. Anyway, it was a Dingwall bass. So that was cool. And honestly, I don't really listen to a lot of heavy stuff, like I said, but like that prog stuff or the Thal death metal, I guess, is where in thrash, obviously. Like that stuff's just wicked.
Especially from a bass standpoint. Like, especially if you grew up with, like, with all due respect to some of my favorite music, even, it's like there's not a lot of interesting stuff happening on bass all the time. Sometimes you're just kind of holding it down on the open E, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
I'm perfectly fine with that too. Yeah, well, David Ellison was a big one. Alex Webster, Cannibal Corpse, Nolly, Devin Townsend in general, just stuff like that. That was really formative for like my teenage years. But like now, like I really just don't listen to it. And I think that kind of gives me a bit of a unique perspective when it comes to songwriting.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's cool to be outside your bubble,
I'm definitely the guy outside of the bubble at this point. Like even Max listens to like really heavy, like he loves like Wayne Static and like industrial stuff. And that stuff's really cool. Like he puts it on and I jam with it in the car, especially Static X. I really think that's cool.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But they're all into like deathcore and hardcore, like Alpha Wolf and Knocked Loose or Hatebreed. That stuff kind of comes to mind. I really like old style hardcore, or like D-Beat, like Discharge is really cool. But,
yeah, don't be around me when Hatebreed comes on. Yeah. Someone else takes over my body when I hear Hatebreed.
Okay, Kyle, stop punching holes in the drywall.
Bro, if you give me a green Monster Energy and put on Destroy Everything, I will fucking lose my shit.
Oh man, yeah, Hatebreed was super super cool, but I think also it's because like I'm so late to the game with the super heavy stuff. I'm still kind of quite rooted into like the jazz and the fusion and proggy kind of stuff. Like that's super super fun with me.
Yeah, well, and that's even like me, honestly. Like I didn't really start getting into heavy stuff until like a few years ago, like really heavy stuff. It wasn't really until I started the podcast and like I started interviewing bands that were like, deathcore bands and stuff. And I was kind of like, what is this deathcore stuff? And
yeah,
now it's like,
sure.
Oh, this is the shit. This is awesome. Like,
like all the local guys, I can definitely say are in my musical repertoire. Like Beguiler, like I love Gord and Jake. Like they're just super, super sick. I love Beguiler.
It's so funny you mentioned Beguiler because, to be brutally honest with you, Jacob and Beguiler are one of the reasons I like deathcore. Like straight up.
Oh, really?
And I've told them that before. I was like there because I've interviewed those guys a shit ton. They've been on the show a bunch. But like I said to Jacob, your voice is legit one of my favorite deathcore voices. As far as like
vile.
Yeah, dude.
I really like Sown. I really love Seagrave. Like they're
dude, crazy. Chris is my boy, man. He's the best. But at the same time,
Itis too that I really like. Yes. I can't really call them deathcore. They're like super kind of like doom. Yeah. But it's based as fuck, dude. I just love that shit. Oh, jeez. Like the local guys around here, they got such talent, and I hear it, and it's actually stuff that I'm like, yeah, like this is sick as fuck.
Yeah, there's something to be said for when you hear a local band and you're like, let's be honest. There's that thing of like, well, I'm going to support them either way. It's the boys. But then you hear it and you're like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, dude. You're like, oh
I
shit.
actually had a lot of that with Pound of Flesh, right? Because they're like, oh, like Zakk joined a metal band again, and then I had some friends come up and they went, "What the fuck was that?"
Well, the second you hear Pound of Flesh, like you're just like, what is happening here? Like it's
Yeah, and like I said a little while ago, like Pound of Flesh is really melding like the kind of heavier, albeit like limited repertoire that I really like, and the country music that I grew up with and hated on as a teenager to try and look cool. But ultimately, like when I did session stuff, it was all country shit, and that was cool.
well, and that's what's so interesting about like your journey to joining the band, which I wanted to ask about. Like, it's almost like having that background in country a little bit and stuff. Like, it's got to lend itself really well to when you hear, you know, the boys be like, "Oh, listen, man, we got a banjo and we tuned it to G sharp, and it's just ripping, bro." Like,
Yeah, so and it's also like a different world too, right? Like when I was a session player, I can really only name two because there was only two that I really did gigs for. One was an artist named Rebecca Stevens. She's awesome. Um, she does a lot of like kind of super radio country stuff, but when we show up, you know, it was a lot of like festivals, and like backline was already there. I just had to show up with a bass and be in tune and be able to play the songs, which was a lot of fun. And we haven't done that since 2019. So Rebecca, get gigs, please. But
listen, Rebecca, it's your boy TJ. Listen, listen, make it happen. No.
But it was crazy. The first gig I ever did with Rebecca was because of my friend Dan. He's a drummer, Daniel Farmer, absolutely incredible drummer. He teaches kids. He found his purpose. So he basically kind of does live shows more as a favor to people that he likes. And he calls me and he goes, "Hey, do you know a guitar player and a bass player?" And I went, "Yeah, me and me." So I had to find another bass player. So he calls me and he's like, I need someone for 3 hours, for 3 hours worth of music. And I said, "Oh, cool. When's the gig?" And he's like, "6 days." um, so I had to pull a guitar player out of my ass, and that was basically my introduction to session playing and becoming a better musician, because Dan pounded music into my head and getting good. But it was insane. And we played a good handful of gigs. I've done some church work for Dan. We did an Easter ceremony, and then we've also worked with another artist called Sean Jameson, and we've done some gigs with him, and that was really cool. I really like his stuff, so I'm gonna plug that. Like, go listen to Rebecca, go listen to Sean. And there was another band. It was a punk band, and it was a duo band, so it was drum and bass, and called Waste Youth. And I played, I think it was 2 or 3 shows with them, and that was basically it. It was short lived because of COVID, but like Dan's also another really cool kind of dude, and Chris, the new bass player, does a lot of cool stuff there too.
It's awesome. It's cool to be able to see people evolve too, right? When other people like join the bands and stuff, like it's cool to be able to look back on stuff you did with homies and be like, "Oh, like, that's cool to see." Like it's not like it's like could have done better or whatever.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's cool to be able to do that. But how exactly did the boys approach you to join the band? Was it literally just like, "Hey, dude, like come join our band. Here's what we're doing"? Like,
Um, Yeah, actually. So, like, little bit of lore for you. I've known Zakk since I was like a teenager. There was a block over. There was a house where a band lived, and they did live shows. And my neighbor, her name was Nora Jean. She used to take me over all the time. That's how I knew Zakk. And then I knew him like playing through Seagrave and Heir to the Throne and stuff like that. And then he reaches out to me. So he goes, "What are you doing musically these days?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, nothing." And he goes, "Oh, fuck. Do you want to listen to something?" And I said, "Sure." He sends it to me. And I go, "This is awesome." He goes, "All right, cool. So you want to come jam?" And I said, "Sure." And so I never really knew Shane. Like I knew of Shane. So I didn't know how to kind of vibe with him just yet. So I showed up in the most comedic fucking clown ass getup. I wore like basketball shorts, and I love Jesus hat, and a shirt that says "Please be patient, I have autism." And I showed up with my Chapman bass and a dark glass head. And he's like, "Oh, well, like, did you learn the songs?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And he's like, "How?" And I'm like, "Well, I just listened to them." And then I played them all back, and they were kind of like looking at each other because they must have thought I was fucking crazy at that point. And then I'm like, "Oh, cool. So am I in the band?" They say, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to go to work now." And then I went home and ate soup because I just was uncomfortable.
That's exactly how you describe. That's how I would be in that exact situation. So that's what's making me chuckle. But like, yeah, that's just like cool. So like, am I in the band? They're probably just like, yeah, dude. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny because now it's like a running joke. Like Zach's like, "Oh, don't worry, Murderface will learn it through osmosis." And like I had a mustache at the time,
Murderface.
and it made me look like Murderface from Death Clog, and I do the voice really well too. So
Oh, please, can you grace us with that voice real quick?
no,
Okay,
never.
that's fine.
Maybe off record.
Okay, okay, okay. Because yeah, that's as soon as you said that, I was like, oh god, he'll learn it through osmosis.
Yeah, no, that like it's a recurring joke because like they're like, "Cool, I'll send you the tabs." I'm like, You don't need to, I can learn it." And yeah, I showed up and I just played. There was like I think two songs which ended up being Crossroad Boogeyman and Fafo were the two songs. And I'm like, yeah, like that's fine. I can do these.
What was like? So if those are the first two songs, was Crossroads Boogeyman the one that kind of made you go like, oh, okay, this is really cool and unique style for what these guys are doing.
Yeah. So that was the first song that Zakk sent, and I was like, "Oh, this is fucking sick." It gave like Maylene and the Sons of Disaster vibes, Holly Springs Disaster, like that kind of like Southern old tough boy. And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I can do this. Like, this is really cool." And I honestly, the rest is history.
How was that first show playing with them? Because at the time, were you guys a 6 piece, a 7 piece, a 12 piece? How many people in the band at the time? When you
So at that point, it was five. It was guitar player Cody Avon, who I love very, very much. He's super, super, super cool and incredibly talented, and does all our art. And oh my God, man, he's just awesome. I miss him a lot. He brought like a really cool vibe and just fucking shreds. Max shreds just as good too. He has the same kind of vibes. So it's not like any shoes are being like not as filled because I love Max so much, but I also just love Cody. He's my boy. And then a drummer, and then Zach and I and Shane, and then we added that other guy who did singing, and that drummer left because there was some complications. So then that's Brady, and then Dylan joined because we all decided more was more. And then
why
that
have
other,
one rhythm guitar when you can have two? Like,
quite literally. So we were then there was a joke where it was Redneck Periphery, and now it was Redneck Slipknot because then we had two vocalists. But that other guy, um, you know, all due respect, had some stuff going on. So now it's just the six of us again, which is weird.
Well, it's so fun because, like, I think that it's interesting to look at when you have so much changes in a band because, you're still relatively a new band, like,
Yeah, right.
so, but now it
But
feels like you guys have things locked in really good now.
yeah, this is the unit, right? Like Zach and Dylan are really good rhythm players. Like they got tight right hands. Max does some of the coolest, like most searing leads. And you know what? I think he's the tightest guitar player of the three, but he just likes to do whatever he can. And I think that's so cool. Brady is incredible. He's a great guy. He's super funny. He's a great drummer. And then Shane is just a fucking what I put him kind of like Devin Townsend. Like he's a little out there, a little wacky, a little kooky, but he can do anything and everything. Like if we all left the band, like Pound of Flesh could still like go on just through Shane, straight up.
It's cool to have cats like that around, though, right? Like, just
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that, like, if like, oh hey, I have this idea for a song, and it's like, okay, send me the riff. Well, here's the whole song. Like, it's just
Yeah,
like
straight up.
here's the idea. Like,
Yeah, it was awesome. And straight up, like I would not trade or replace anybody in this band because everyone brings something really cool. Our dynamic is there, and it's six dudes with larger than life personalities. So I mean, obviously we're gonna butt heads, but traveling, the province and hopefully a little bit more this year, like I wouldn't trade any of those moments for the world. They are pretty much just a second family at this point, and I'll die by my brothers.
that's awesome, man. Well, and that's the true test of not only friendship but also a working relationship. If you can get in a van and just be around each other for like a while and just still be cool at the end of it, it's like, okay, like that's true. That's the true test of being around people's quirks and smells and like it's
Oh
just
yeah, like
yeah.
we're all pretty stinky, so we just kind
So
of
who
like
cares? Yeah, it's like
we
fuck
gave
it.
up. We're like, yeah, we're just six smelly ass dudes, so we'll just fucking give up. Like what was it? It was a couple of days ago. Even Shane was like, "Yeah, man, like your hair is looking really good." And I'm like, "Thanks. It's the 3 days of no showering from being depressed."
It's like, oh, say, bro, like it's
Yeah,
just
and
like
he was basically like, "Oh, I understand what that feels like." And then we
yeah,
just went, "Ah, okay."
and just like moved on. It's just
Oh,
like
quite yeah, quite literally. And it's really funny because we feed into each other like out of pocket stuff, and we're all gear snobs. We're all gear snobs, gear whores even. They're just you go to Dylan's house and he has like eight or nine guitars. He has a super limited edition amp. He has a whole bunch of old trainer stuff. Max has so many. Shane has like 40 guitars and like several different amplifiers. And I have like two basses, and that's it.
that's all you really need. Let's be honest. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I have the precision bass, and the Chapman is elsewhere. So I have another precision bass.
Nice. Now, as we get ready to kind of wind down here, I want to ask for you right now, what is like the dream setup as far as
If I could have like anything, like as in like for this band or just in general.
let's do for this band and then also in general.
So for this band, I'd probably go back to Dark Glass stuff, some sort of like X900, or they're doing like a combo amp that can do an external speaker that fills a lot of voids for me because I don't like pedals, but I do need to use effects sometimes, and they have the Infinity coming out, so probably something like that, an extension cab, and a couple ding walls because we definitely need it for that low tuning. And then outside of that, I basically have it like a couple precision basses and maybe a fretless bass down the road.
Yeah, those fretlesses are always fun. They trip me out, but they're always fun.
Oh yeah, and you know that's where ear training comes in because you have to be really precise. You have to have good intonation with stuff like that.
Yeah, and you got guys like me over here who are just like guitars go gunk gunk. Like that's
Oh yeah, I should probably get back into playing more guitar for sure.
well, you have to. You gotta sometimes you gotta just add a couple strings and riff out.
Yeah,
Something to do.
yeah. I basically I had a really nice collection of like old older like some Norland era Gibsons and some USA made Epiphone acoustics and stuff, and I was just like, nah. And
Nah,
I
you know what?
got
Let's
rid
get
of
rid of all
them.
this. I don't need it.
Yeah, I just sold them all. Mainly for car parts and a dingwall, but and now I don't even have the dingwall. So like, what am I doing with my
Shit.
life?
Oh no.
It's fine. It's
Uh,
fine. I'm probably gonna get something back anyway.
yeah,
It's
dude.
the
You
multi
gotta.
scale is just too good.
Yeah, you gotta spoil yourself and get some stuff. And trust me, I sold all my stuff, and now I'm sitting here like, all I got's like my old acoustic, which I love. That's my boy. But I'm like, if I could
Oh,
go back, if
absolutely.
I could go back.
Yeah, yeah. My like I was telling you before this, like my biggest regrets were getting rid of my Dingwall basses. So
Yeah.
those are definitely on the list of priorities, which they probably shouldn't be. But let's be real here. Nothing is like those basses. They're absolutely incredible, and it's a Canadian company, so why not be patriotic?
Hell yeah. Oh, Canada, bro. That's what's up. That's what's up. Well, listen, as we are just getting ready to end off here, there's a staple question I always ask people. So I wanted to ask you real quick here.
Hmm.
Do you have a story from your favorite show or your least favorite show because something really funny but bad happened since your time with Pound of Flesh that you can tell me?
Uh, I think my favorite show straight up was Heavy Lindsay, the one that you
Hell
came
yeah.
to.
Because I was
Um,
there, bro. No, kidding.
well, I mean, yeah, I'm absolutely grateful
Me
that
and
you're
half
there,
of
but
Lindsay showed up.
yeah.
It was cool.
So the last time I played a show in Lindsay was exactly a decade, like almost to the day. It would have been like 2013. I played a show in December with like some shitty metal band, and then nothing ever came of that ever again. And then bam, a decade goes by with like no local shows, and then I was like, what the fuck, right? Because it was all people I've never met before, and then a couple of really good friends just showed up, and they're like, "Hey, like let's have a good time," and then they stayed, and they were like, "What the fuck was that?" Just they just never saw it play before, and that was really cool for me. I would love to do that again.
That's awesome, man. I mean, it was a cool venue, Pie Monk. I mean, I told the story before about my wedding and all that shit there. And so, like, being able to see a band in the place where, like, I had my first dance at my wedding and shit, I was like, this is fucking sick. Like, this is so it was a special place for me. But then also, the turnout was just wild. And I heard, like, the person who put it all together at the end, she was talking about how, like, she didn't know how this was going to go, but she really wanted to try it. And, like, I think you'll see that happen again there. And I really hope it does because it was a wild, awesome night. What a killer fucking lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, it was so bewildering for me just to see my hometown just go, "Oh man, we really want this." Because nobody wants to fucking do anything in Lindsay.
I feel like that's slowly starting to change. I feel like
Oh,
you're going to start seeing more
100%.
shows, so that makes me excited. Being, yeah, I'm in Peterborough, but I got love for Lindsay, so it's like I'd like to see more stuff like that happen there for sure. Have to
100%, bro.
have to put on some more
100%.
shows there and everything. But listen, Zach, man, it's been a pleasure getting to chat with you. I appreciate the time. Where can the good people find you and the band if they want to check you guys out on social media?
You can literally find us anywhere. We're on, well, except for Twitter, because fuck Twitter. But we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. It's Pound of Flesh SOS. Find us on Threads. You follow the individual members on Instagram, Pound of whatever. I'm Floof because I'm fluffy. And just you can find our music wherever music is being streamed.
Hell yeah, dude. Appreciate the time, man. Thanks very much. Raise the horns up
Appreciate
again
you, man.
real quick
Thank you.
for you and General Newstead.
General Newstead, brother.
All right, thanks, man.
No problem.
All right, folks, there you have it in my chat with Zak Smith from Pound of Flesh. Hope you guys enjoyed listening to that as much as I enjoyed recording it. Big shout outs to Zach for being just a one-of-a-kind individual. That was really genuinely a pleasure getting to record that with you, buddy. So thank you. And thank you so much for listening, especially if you're still listening. It means the world to me. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed this episode. Leave a rating. 5-star ratings help this podcast grow. So if you think this conversation deserves a 5-star rating, go ahead and leave one. And be sure to go check out Pound of Flesh wherever you get your music. I'll have a link down below in the description of this podcast to their link tree, in which you can check out their stuff, including their latest single, Black Mirror. Go check it out. And if you get a chance to see them live, you need to do that because they are a pleasure to watch do their thing. And they just destroy every stage they come across. So big shouts again to Zach and the boys in Pound of Flesh. Before we go here today, I of course want to take a second to give a shout out to my Patreon supporters, my hardheads. We of course have Ronan Komori, Wolf Delta Pi, Eric Phones, CM Peters, Jason Reese, Kelly Sisson, Terry and Janet Hodder, Brandon Bowden, Neil Skarupa, and Ian Hall. Thank you guys so much for all the support. It truly means the world to me. I appreciate every single one of you for taking the time to not only help financially support this podcast, but also just support me. Let's be honest, this podcast would not be running without your guys' support. I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. I've had some issues lately with programs and things of that nature, and the Patreon funding has been a godsend to be able to keep this show going. So thank you all very much for the support on that, especially at this stage of the game. We're rounding up on 400 episodes, and that's pretty wild. And I have no signs of slowing down or stopping this podcast or anything, but the fact that we're nearing 400 episodes, and there's especially a few of you who have now been around for over 2 years very soon, and that you've been around supporting the show longer. I mean, Jason has been around since day one. Brandon's been around since day one. Terry and Janet Hodder have literally been around since day one. So it just it means a lot to me. So thank you guys so very much for all of the support. With that, I'm going to sign off here today. Thank you guys so very much again for listening. Check out Pound of Flesh. Check out The Hodder Show wherever you get your podcast and on social media. Also, we have a Discord. Go ahead and shoot me a message if you want to join the Discord. We have a lot of fun over there. I'm going to start being a lot more active in the next coming weeks for that. It's been a little quiet, but I promise, guys, I'm going to be back at it doing live stream stuff. Hopefully at least 2-3 times a week. We'll see what happens, though. But I'm hoping at least to get a live stream once or twice a week going again. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I will catch you next time right here on The Hodder Show. Take it easy, guys.